How many things have you lost in the last 2 years without understanding why? Work, relationship, friends, home. You thought you were being punished, that you had failed, but no. It was the fifth dimension doing its cleaning, removing everything that kept you stuck, without asking for your opinion, without explaining beforehand. You only find out why later. No one told you that the fifth dimension doesn't come bringing only light. It arrives eliminating ties, eliminating illusions, eliminating the old version of you. And maybe what you're calling loss is in fact activation. Prepare yourself, because 5D doesn't ask for permission. She cuts, she removes, she transforms. And today you will understand what she has already started to take from your life. You've probably come this far thinking you were in control of your life. And maybe you were. Until the day you weren't anymore. The job left without explanation. The relationship that seemed solid turned to ashes out of nowhere. Friends of years disappeared as if they had never existed. And in the midst of all this came that question that hurts more than any loss. What did I do wrong? The answer will surprise you, because you didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you did everything right. And that's exactly why your life imploded. There is an automatic clearing protocol that the fifth dimension activates when your frequency begins to rise. And it does not ask permission. It does not warn you beforehand. It does not explain the reasons. It simply acts, removes without you asking, eliminates without negotiating. And the most disturbing paradox of all is that the more you grow on the inside, the more things disappear on the outside. Sound cruel? Does it sound like punishment? It's exactly what it sounds like, until you understand what's being eliminated and why. Because it's not just anything that's coming out. It's specifically 7 things. The same 7 in practically everyone who goes through this process. In this video, you will understand why your life falls apart when you begin to ascend. What exactly the fifth dimension eliminates from your field without you asking. And what comes after the cleansing is over. Because there is an after, and it is incomparably better than what has gone. If you're in the middle of chaos right now, stay. This content was made for you. And if you haven't been through it yet, you will too. Because when it arrives, and it will, you'll want to have understood it before. Comment below number 7 if any of these losses have already knocked on your door. Let's see how many of us have gone through this cleansing without knowing her name. There's one thing no one tells you about the moments when life seems to fall apart. They're not accidents. When that job left without warning, when the relationship that seemed eternal just collapsed out of nowhere, when friends who promised to always be there vanished like smoke, the person stands there staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, wondering what they did wrong. And this question almost always comes with a pain that tightens the chest in a way that is difficult to even describe. But what if all this was not divine punishment? What if, in fact, it was exactly the opposite? There is a cleaning protocol that operates silently, automatically, without asking for permission, and it acts just when the person least expects it. The fifth dimension does not send prior notice, does not schedule meetings, does not explain the reasons before acting. She simply removes without you asking. And what it removes almost always is what the person believes they need most, but which is actually exactly what is keeping them small. The feeling at first is of sudden loss. It's the ground disappearing, but there's something profoundly different going on underneath all this pain. Something that most people never stop to see because they're too busy trying to pick up the pieces. And it is precisely there, in this space of collapse, in this "I didn't ask for this," that one of the most radical transformations that a human being can go through begins. The question is, What exactly is being eliminated, and why does it change absolutely everything? Let me tell you something most people get wrong when they start to understand about the fifth dimension. They think it's a place you go to, like a plane trip with a scheduled date, but that's not how it works. The fifth dimension is not a destination, it is a frequency that one becomes. And when that frequency changes, certain things just can't exist in the same field anymore. It is not a choice, it is not willpower, it is not a conscious decision, it is pure spiritual physics. Think of a kettle of water on the stove. Water does not decide to evaporate. She doesn't wake up one morning and say, "Today I'm going to turn into steam." When the temperature reaches 100 degrees, the transformation happens. Automatic, inevitable, without negotiation. The dimensional upgrade works exactly like that. When a person's internal frequency rises, everything that vibrates below that level simply cannot sustain itself in their field. Relationships, jobs, habits, places, people. Everything that doesn't keep up with the new frequency starts to come out. Not because the person asked for it, because the law has no exception. And therein lies the cruelest paradox of this process. The more a person grows on the inside, the more life implodes on the outside, at least in the beginning. The cleaning protocol does not ask if it is a good time. It doesn't wait for the account balance to be positive, the relationship to be stable, the person to be emotionally prepared. It acts when it's time. And when it's time, it almost never coincides with when it would be convenient. What is yet to come in this cleansing is more specific, heavier, and more transformative than it seems at first glance. Let's start with the first thing the fifth dimension removes. Number 1, codependent relationships. There is a type of relationship that looks like love, but deep down it is an emotional survival agreement. They are those connections where two wounded people meet and create a world of their own, us against the world. I save you, you save me. That feeling that without the other person, something essential is missing. Codependent relationships have a very strong glue, because shared pain binds together in a way that joy rarely can. And so when that kind of bond begins to crumble, the involuntary loss seems impossible to bear. What most people don't see is that these bonds didn't survive the healing process, not because the love was fake, but because the love was imprisoned. When a person begins to become whole on their own, the dynamic of "I need you to feel complete" no longer makes sense. And then the relationship just collapses completely. Sometimes it's a fight. Sometimes it's a slow, unexplained cooling. Sometimes the person wakes up and realizes that what was between the two has become nothing. No drama, no explanation. Automatic cleaning doesn't warn you. It just acts. The pain of this loss is real, and there is no point in minimizing it. A relationship of years that ends out of nowhere. A person who swore eternal love and disappeared. This hurts in a way that goes deep. But there's something that happens after that pain, when the dust settles, that completely changes the perspective on what a real connection is. The kind of love that comes after this sacred cleansing has nothing to do with what has gone away. And understanding this requires going through a few more layers of what the fifth dimension eliminates without asking permission. Number 2. Toxic work that drains your soul. There is a lie that society tells very well, repeated from an early age. At home, at school, everywhere. Find something stable, hold it with both hands, and don't let go. And then the person spends years, sometimes decades, in a toxic job that sucks the energy, numbs the soul, and pays the bills. They wake up every day with that heavy feeling in the chest, that "I can't take it anymore," that is swallowed along with breakfast. They didn't ask for that, but they learned to call it responsibility. What few people realize is that the body has a limit. There comes a time when it simply refuses to continue. The unexpected dismissal that seemed like the end of the world, the company that closes without warning, the total collapse of health that makes it impossible to continue at that pace. The fifth-dimensional automatic cleansing has no preference for the method. It only guarantees the result. You leave. One way or another, you get out. The universe trusts your mission more than you trust yourself, and that's why it acts before you're convinced to stay another year just in case. There are people who lost stable jobs, panicked about the bills, and 6 months later were doing what they always wanted to do. Earning more, sleeping better, looking in the mirror without that emptiness in their eyes. It wasn't luck, it was the cleaning protocol operating. The temporary financial chaos that comes after toxic work is real and frightening, but it's a passage, not a destination. And while this process eliminates what suffocates on the outside, it also begins to act on something that the person carries inside without even realizing they're carrying it. Number 3, addictions and emotional crutches. Everyone has their own way of running away. For one, it's alcohol at the end of the day. That glass that turned into 2 that turned into the bottle. For another, it is emotional eating at 2 in the morning in front of the open refrigerator. Not hungry, but with a nameless pain that needs to be filled with something. There are those who run away through their phone, pornography, compulsive shopping, chronic procrastination that turns dreams into "one day I'll do it." Addictions and emotional crutches exist for a very simple reason. They work, at least for a while. They numb what hurts and create a comfortable illusion of control over the chaos within. The problem is that the fifth dimension requires total presence, and total presence is the exact opposite of anesthesia. So, at a moment that seems random but is not, these escape routes begin to fail. The alcohol that used to relax begins to make you sick. The emotional food that comforted begins to disgust even before the first bite. The addiction of years simply stops working. No willpower, no 12-step program, no New Year's resolution. Automatic cleaning blocks the exits, not out of cruelty, but because there is no way to ascend while the person is constantly running away from themselves. And herein lies one of the most surprising turns of this whole process. When the crutches come out, what appears in its place is not the emptiness that the person feared so much. It is themselves, the version of them that was hidden underneath layers of escape. Habits that elevate begin to emerge naturally, not because of forced discipline, but because the old ones simply stopped serving. Meditation, movement, creativity, real connections. Things that once seemed boring or too difficult start to make sense. But before reaching that lightness, cleaning still has one more address to visit, and this time it's the physical place where the person lives. Number 4. Incompatible places and environments. There is one thing that very few people consider when they are feeling bad without knowing exactly why. The place where they live, the city that suffocates, the neighborhood that drains, the house that carries a heavy energy that sticks to the skin as soon as the door closes. Places have frequencies. This isn't vague mysticism. It's something anyone has felt when entering an environment that seems light versus one that seems to suck energy. And when someone's internal frequency rises, certain places physically can no longer support it. The body begins to give signals, the chest tightens, the air feels heavier, life implodes in ways that seem to have no explanation. What is surprising is how the elimination of these places happens. It's not usually a planned decision, that thing of sitting down, making a spreadsheet, and concluding, "I'm going to move." It is the rent that triples out of nowhere. It is the job opportunity that appears exactly in the city that has always generated curiosity. It is the situation that becomes so unsustainable that staying becomes impossible. The fifth dimension acts through circumstances, and suddenly the person finds themselves packing their bags without having planned anything, without you asking. The incompatible environment kicks you out, gently or not, but it kicks you out. And anyone who has been through this knows there comes a time when the body breathes in a different way. The tension that seemed normal goes away, creativity returns, sleep improves. It wasn't weakness, it was energy incompatibility with the place. There are people who left large urban centers without any clear plan, and found in smaller cities, in the countryside, on the beach, or even in another country, the environment that actually sustains who they were becoming. But while the place changes on the outside, there is something that also needs to change on the inside, and it is perhaps the most disorienting transformation of all, because it messes with what the person believes themselves to be. So where does this leave us? We've covered how the fifth dimension removes codependent relationships that felt like love but were really survival agreements. How it eliminates toxic work that you called responsibility but was actually a prison. How it blocks the addictions and crutches you used to numb the pain. And how it forces you out of places that can no longer hold your new frequency. But here's what we haven't talked about yet. What happens when the fifth dimension starts removing who you think you are? When it dissolves your identity, your need for control, and the people you've known for years? These next three removals cut even deeper, because they don't just change what you do or where you live, they change who you believe yourself to be. And that transformation? That's what we're unpacking in part 2. What's been removed from your life in the last 2 years? Drop it in the comments below. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss part 2. The cleansing continues, and what comes next might be exactly what you're living through right now. Click that notification bell. I'll see you there.